Why Japanese seniors never use walkers. I know that sounds impossible, especially if you've ever been to a mall or a grocery store in America, where it seems like everyone over 70 is using a cane, a walker, or leaning on a shopping cart just to get around. But I'm about to show you something that completely changed how I think about aging and mobility. And once you see what I discovered during my research trip to Japan, you're going to understand why their approach to staying mobile is light years ahead of what we're doing here. Picture this. I'm walking through a park in Kyoto, Japan, and I see this elderly woman, probably in her late 80s, getting down on her hands and knees to tend to her garden. No assistance, no struggle, just smooth, controlled movement. Then she stands back up, again with perfect balance and no help, picks up a heavy watering can, and continues her work. I stood there absolutely stunned because just 6 months earlier, I couldn't get up from a chair without wincing in pain, let alone get down on the ground and back up again. That moment sent me down a research rabbit hole that transformed my entire understanding of mobility and aging. And what I discovered is that Japanese seniors practice one specific type of exercise that most Americans have never even heard of. It's not walking, it's not swimming, it's not yoga, it's something called floor-based functional movement. And it's the reason you'll rarely see a walker or cane in Japan, despite having one of the oldest populations on Earth. Here's the shocking statistic that made me pay attention. In Japan, only about 8% of people over 75 use mobility aids like walkers or canes. In the United States, that number is over 35%. That's more than 4 times higher. And it's not genetics, it's not healthcare access. It's one fundamental difference in how they approach movement and exercise from their 60s onward. Let me back up and tell you why this matters so much to me personally. 2 years ago, at 64 years old, I was headed down the same path as millions of other Americans. My knees hurt constantly. My balance was getting worse. I had fallen twice in 6 months, once in my own bathroom. My doctor was talking about getting me a cane for safety. I felt like my body was betraying me, getting weaker and more fragile every month despite trying to stay active with daily walks. Then I met a Japanese physical therapist at a health conference who completely changed my perspective. She asked me one simple question. When was the last time you sat on the floor and stood back up without using your hands? I laughed and said, probably 20 years ago. She didn't laugh. She told me that inability to get up from the floor is one of the strongest predictors of mortality and loss of independence. And in Japan, they never stop practicing this movement throughout their entire lives. She explained something that hit me like a ton of bricks. In Japan, people sit on the floor to eat meals, to have tea, to watch television, to socialize. Multiple times every single day, Japanese seniors are lowering themselves to the floor and standing back up. They're doing this movement pattern without even thinking about it. It's built into their daily life. And this one habit is keeping their legs strong, their balance sharp, and their bodies functional decades longer than ours. In America, we sit in chairs, we sit on couches. We avoid getting on the floor because it's uncomfortable, and getting back up is hard. So we lose that ability. And once you lose the ability to get up from the floor, your world starts shrinking. You become afraid of falling because you know you might not be able to get back up. That fear makes you move less. Moving less makes you weaker, and the downward spiral continues until you need a walker just to feel safe. But here's the beautiful part. You can reverse this cycle at any age. I decided to test this Japanese approach myself, and I'm going to show you exactly what I did. But before I do, you need to understand why this works so much better than walking or traditional exercises. When you practice getting down to the floor and back up, you're training something called functional movement patterns. These are the exact movements you need for real life. You're building strength in your legs, yes, but you're also training balance, coordination, core stability, and most importantly, confidence in your body's ability to handle unexpected situations. Every time you successfully get up from the floor, you're telling your nervous system that you're capable and strong. Walking doesn't do this. Walking is great for cardiovascular health, but it only trains movement in one plane, moving forward. It doesn't train the rotational movements, the up and down movements, or the balance challenges that prevent falls and maintain independence. That's why you can walk 5 miles a day and still struggle to get out of a low chair or pick something up off the floor. The Japanese have known this for centuries, but Western medicine is only now starting to catch up. There's actually a famous study called the sitting rising test that came out of Brazil, but was inspired by Eastern movement practices. In this study, researchers asked over 2,000 adults aged 51 to 80 to sit down on the floor and stand back up using minimal support. They scored people based on how much support they needed. The results were shocking. People who needed the most support to get up and down had a 5 to 6 times higher risk of dying within the next 6 years compared to those who could do it with minimal support. Think about what that means. This one simple movement pattern is so fundamental to health and longevity that it predicts mortality better than many medical tests. And yet, when's the last time your doctor asked you to demonstrate getting up from the floor? Probably never. So, here's what I started doing, and this is the exact protocol that helped me go from needing a cane to being more mobile than I was in my 50s. I call it the Japanese floor freedom method, and it has 3 progressive levels. Level 1 is what I started with because I couldn't actually get down to the floor safely when I began. I practiced the sitting-rising movement using a low chair or ottoman. Here's how you do it. Stand in front of a sturdy chair that's about knee height. Slowly lower yourself down to sit, focusing on controlling the descent rather than just dropping down. Use as little hand support as possible, even if you need to touch the chair arms lightly for balance. Pause for a moment sitting on the chair, then stand back up, again using minimal hand support. The key is making this movement slow and controlled. Do 5 repetitions 3 times per day. This might sound too simple to be effective, but trust me, if you've lost this movement pattern over the years, even this level will challenge you. I spent 2 full weeks at level 1, gradually reducing how much I relied on my hands for support. And I noticed something interesting happening. My leg strength improved, obviously, but my confidence improved even more. I started feeling more stable in other activities throughout my day. Level 2 is where you transition to the actual floor. Start by kneeling on a cushioned surface, like a yoga mat or thick carpet. From the kneeling position, place one hand on the floor for support and carefully lower yourself to a seated position. Sit cross-legged or with legs extended, whatever feels comfortable. Rest there for a moment, taking a few deep breaths. Then reverse the movement to return to kneeling and finally standing. Again, use as little hand support as you can safely manage and do 5 repetitions twice per day. This level took me about 3 weeks to master. The first few times, I'll be honest, it was awkward and difficult. My knees complained. My balance felt shaky, but I stuck with it. And every day, it got a little easier. I started to feel muscles in my legs and core that I hadn't felt working in years. My body was waking back up. Level 3 is the full Japanese movement pattern. From standing, carefully lower yourself all the way to sitting on the floor. You can go through kneeling as a transition if needed. Sit comfortably for at least 30 seconds. Then, using minimal hand support, or ideally none at all, return to standing. This is the gold standard. This is what Japanese seniors do multiple times a day without even thinking about it. It took me 2 months of consistent practice to reach level 3. The first time I got up from the floor without using my hands, I actually got emotional. I felt like I had taken my body back from aging. I felt powerful and capable in a way I hadn't felt in over a decade. And once I could do it consistently, everything else in my life improved. My fear of falling disappeared. My confidence in social situations improved because I wasn't worried about navigating stairs or uneven surfaces. I started doing activities I had given up on, like playing with my grandkids on the floor. But here's what makes this approach even more powerful. The Japanese don't just practice this movement as exercise. They build it into their daily lives. And you can do the same thing. Instead of always sitting in a chair to watch TV, try sitting on the floor with your back against the couch. Even if you only do it for 10 minutes before moving back to the chair, you're training the movement pattern. When you're playing with grandchildren, get down on their level on the floor. When you're stretching or reading, do it on the floor instead of on a bed or couch. The more you practice this movement in real-life contexts, the more automatic and effortless it becomes. And here's the bonus benefit that I didn't expect. This practice improved my posture, reduced my back pain, increased my hip flexibility, and even helped with my digestion. Sitting on the floor naturally encourages better spinal alignment and engages your core muscles in a way that sitting in a chair never does. Now, I know some of you are thinking this sounds great, but there's no way you can do it. Maybe you have knee problems, hip replacements, or severe arthritis. I hear you. But here's the truth. Unless you have a medical condition that absolutely prohibits it, this movement can be modified to work for you. Start with level 1. And stay there as long as you need. Use more support if necessary. The goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to maintain or regain the movement pattern to whatever degree your body allows. I've worked with dozens of people now who started this practice in their 60s, 70s, and even 80s. Some of them have arthritis. Some have had surgeries. Some started out barely able to stand from a regular chair. But with patience, consistency, and proper progression, almost everyone improves, and the ones who stick with it, they're the ones walking confidently through parking lots, bending down to tie their own shoes, and living independently while their peers are struggling with walkers and wheelchairs. There's one more secret the Japanese do that supports this movement practice. They combine it with what they call radio taiso, which are gentle full-body movement exercises done daily, often in groups at parks or community centers. These exercises prepare the body for functional movements by maintaining flexibility, balance, and coordination. I've adapted some of these into my routine, and I'll share those in a future video. But the foundation is always the floor-based movement practice. Let me be clear about something important. I'm not saying walkers and canes are never necessary. For some people with specific medical conditions or after certain injuries, they're essential medical devices. But for many seniors, they become a crutch in the literal and figurative sense. They become necessary because we stopped training the movements that would keep us strong enough not to need them. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. We expect to need mobility aids as we age, so we don't maintain the strength and balance to avoid them, which means we end up needing them right on schedule. The Japanese have a different expectation. They expect to remain mobile and independent well into their 80s and 90s. And because they expect it and practice movements that support it, they achieve it. This isn't wishful thinking. This is intentional daily practice of functional movement patterns that maintain the body's capabilities. Here's my challenge to you. Start with level 1 today. Right now, after watching this video, practice sitting down and standing up from a chair 5 times with minimal hand support. Notice how it feels. Notice which muscles are working. Do this 3 times today, then every day for the next week. I promise you'll start noticing improvements in how stable and strong you feel. After a week, assess whether you're ready to progress to level 2 or whether you need more time building strength at level 1. There's no rush. This isn't a race. This is about reclaiming your mobility and independence at whatever pace works for you.